Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to something a little different. We're going to take a break from our regularly scheduled classic Halo gameplay to look at something a little bit newer. Like a lot of people, I got invited to the Halo Infinite technical preview last week, and like just about every other Halo YouTuber on the website, thought I'd make a video giving my thoughts. I'm going to kind of break it down into different categories, just kind of go over everything, give my thoughts on each category, and then at the end I'll give my overall thoughts of the preview. So let's jump into it. First, we're going to talk about graphics. I thought it'd be appropriate to start off with graphics because pretty much the main reason that the game got delayed in the first place was due to graphics. When 343 showed off the Halo Infinite gameplay trailer last year, a lot of people made a lot of noise about the graphics and how they were underwhelming. They didn't, Craig the Brute was a big meme online. Because of that, they decided to delay the game and go back to the drawing board and work on it some more. And I think that was a good thing. Personally, I think the result of that has shown that it was a good thing. The graphics in the preview look really nice. I was playing it on Xbox Series X on a 4K OLED TV, 120 hertz. Looked really nice. I'm not a graphics expert, so I don't know all of the technical terms for what they did to make the game look nice, but I know that just looking at comparison shots between the technical preview and the original gameplay trailer, there seems to be a lot more detail in the new game. The weapons look more detailed, the environments look more detailed, the characters look more detailed. The lighting is really nice. It's got nice lighting. Curious to see how it's going to look on the Dimetric edition, as I like to call it, of the Halo Xbox One, which is the original OG Xbox One, because that was the least powerful one. So I'm curious to see. From what I heard, it runs at 1080p, or was it 1080p, maybe 720p and 30 FPS, because the Xbox Series X version was hitting 4K HDR at 120 FPS. I don't know if it was, I think I saw a thing that said it wasn't like a stable 120 FPS, like it was kind of dipping, but it felt really smooth to me when I was playing it. Now, I did have issues early on with my Elgato 4K 60 Pro that I used for capturing, because I've had that thing for a while, but I haven't actually used it for capturing any 4K footage because I've been recording OG Xbox, so I didn't need a 4K capture card. So because of that, I went through some growing pains of trying to figure out the settings and everything. And so my first bunch of matches, I had some bad input lag, which at first I didn't know if it was the game or what. I thought it was the game. And I was like, oh man, these controls are terrible. Turned out it was settings that I had on my Elgato. And once I corrected those settings, the game felt really good. There's a ton of options, but we'll get into that later. But as far as the graphics, I'd say it's a win. Graphics look really good. Like I said, especially in 4K with the HDR and all that stuff turned on. So good job on the graphics. Next, we'll talk about the controls. It's a first-person shooter, so controls are one of the most important things. You got to get the controls right. Back in the day, before people understood, or the mass public, myself included, really understood the differences of frame rates that games ran at, I didn't understand or know that Call of Duty ran at 60 hertz or 60 FPS, and that Halo ran at 30. So I used to always describe the difference in feeling of the two as Call of Duty feeling more tactical and Halo feeling more organic. And back in the day, I thought that was a good descriptor of the differences in feelings, but really it was just a difference in frame rate. That being said, I still feel like that analogy that I use kind of applies, because even with playing the Halo Infinite technical preview at 120 FPS, it still feels different than like a Call of Duty, which is good. There's a ton of options in the menu in Halo Infinite for customizing the controls. They've got your typical button layout and stick layout, so you could do green thumb or bumper jumper or recon, stuff like that. Southpaw, which I do play Southpaw, and you'll notice in some of these videos it's on default. That's because on Xbox you can go in and change the stick layout at the system level, which I have done, so that's why it says default. But then there's all kinds of crazy other stuff. So there's look sensitivity, which is normal, but then there's also dead zone. There's look acceleration, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not a big fan of look acceleration in shooting games, and I would have preferred to be able to turn this off, but the only option they give you is to put it at 1. Now, I don't know if there's a discernible difference between 1 and a theoretical 0, if there was a 0. Either way, I think I would have liked to be able to just turn that all the way off. But then there's stuff like you can turn toggle to zoom on and off. You can turn toggle to crouch on and off. You can turn toggle to sprint on and off. They got weird stuff like this one that makes it to where it automatically adjusts your jump height if you're trying to jump to like a lower ledge versus a higher one, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure how, I guess if in like high tier competitive, maybe that would mean the difference between life and death if you're playing against really, really good players, but I didn't really see the point of it. Otherwise, the controls felt good to me. Now you can adjust you could adjust the look sensitivity while aimed. So while zoomed in, you can individually adjust that versus your regular look sensitivity, and you can do it at different levels. So I noticed that when zooming in, it felt like the aim was a little fast, because I'm used to shooting games where when you zoom, it's slower. So you can more accurately pinpoint, line up your target, whatever. But again, that's something you can go in and adjust. At least you have that freedom. I wouldn't say it's the best feeling Halo game ever as far as the controls, but definitely not the worst. Not that I can't really think of any Halo game that had, what I would say were bad controls, but either way, I think it's fine. The controls are fine. Next, we'll talk about movement. Movement, ever since Halo Reach, movement in Halo has been kind of a hot topic, because Halo Reach is when Bungie introduced armor abilities, including the ability to sprint, evade, and to a lesser extent, the jetpack. All of these are abilities that changed the way that players moved around within the sandbox of Halo. And then we had Halo 4, which decided to make sprint a permanent ability, not just an armor mod or armor ability. A lot of people didn't like that. For years, there's been this whole debate of whether sprint belongs in Halo and this, that, and the other. And then, Halo 5 kind of really blew it out of the water in terms of dividing the community on Halo movement with their advanced movement. Personally, I wasn't a fan of it. I felt like, and I know this is probably going to be a hot take, but to me, the advanced movement in Halo 5 is the equivalent of building in Fortnite. And what I mean by that is that it's a system in the game that players who get really good at it actually overshadows the shooting, which to me should be the most important aspect of the game. So, high tier Halo 5 players who are really good at all these things like, these advanced movements like spring jumping and stuff like that can win gunfights against players that may have a better aim than them simply by, moving around the map real quickly to areas where they can get a better vantage. So I feel like the advanced movement in Halo 5 kind of overshadowed the other core gameplay systems, like shooting, grenades, meleeing, stuff like that. So I'm happy that in Halo Infinite, they seem to have acknowledged that. And so the stuff like boosting and ground pounding and all that stuff they're not default abilities anymore. I have heard that they're going to return as a equipment in the final game, which I'm fine with that. Just so long as not everybody 100% of the time is just boosting all over the map like crazy people. Now, they did leave in things from Halo 5. So obviously sprint is still in the game, but sprint is not, you can sprint in Halo Infinite, but it's very subtle. So sprinting in Halo Infinite, you're not actually moving. They give all these effects. So like there's like wind, it looks like wind coming off the side of you, you know, these like graphical effects to make it feel like you're moving fast, but in reality, you're not really moving much faster than you are at your regular movement speed. So it's kind of a good balance. It doesn't like give you an extreme advantage when you're sprinting. So that was nicely done as far as the subtlety of sprint in Halo Infinite. They left in clambering, which again I'm fine with. Clambering is something that I think is map traversal and getting around, getting to areas quickly, kind of the flow of the game, I'm fine with. They have the ability to slide, which sliding's in a lot of first-person shooters now, and I know a lot of, especially like younger players, like really like to, you know, run around and sprint, slide, you know, jump up, sprint, slide, you know, all over the place, and that's fine. It doesn't bother me one bit. I'm not one of those players, so I'm not going to be doing that, but its inclusion into the game will not affect me personally, so I don't care that it's in there, so I'm fine with it. As far as equipment, you know, we have the grapple hook. I think from the first time it was showing off at the gameplay trailer last year, everybody really seemed to be interested in it. It looked a lot of fun. The ability to not only grapple to different areas, but to grapple objects within the sandbox, you know, within the world, like weapons and fusion coils and stuff like that. Looked really fun, and it is in game. It's a lot of fun swinging across the map and grappling weapons. You can grapple to people. It's a little more dangerous to grapple to a person. You can grapple other weapons and stuff like that. So the grapple's a lot of fun, and it adds a new layer to movement within the game. Next, we'll talk about the guns. There's a few new guns as well as some old favorites returning. We'll go over the new guns first. We'll start with the human weapons. So we had the Commando. The Commando it's an auto rifle technically because it's fully automatic, but it's kind of a more slower firing, heavy hitting, a little more accurate assault rifle. You have to kind of tap the trigger, you know, you can't just lay into it full auto because it kicks a lot more than the assault rifle. So it's a nuanced weapon. As far as, you know, the perspective of somebody like me that's been playing Halo a long time, Halo's always been about weapons fitting in their spot, you know, or where they fit into the lexicon, you know, of Halo weapons. So it'll be interesting to me to see how, because usually in Halo, you know, you have on the human side, you have a weapon that fills each specific role. So it'll be interesting to see how having multiple weapons that are variants of the same weapon type basically fits into the Halo sandbox. Will they get used? If another, you know, let's say the assault rifle fills the role better, how much will it get used or whatever? You know, that'll be interesting to see. But I do like the gun. It is, I have fun using it. You know, like I said, it's a little more nuanced than the assault rifle, so, you know, you have to kind of get used to it. But cool weapon. I like the look of it and everything. Next, we'll talk about the Bulldog, which is the new shotgun. It kind of has a, aesthetically, it kind of looks like a futuristic version of the real life Striker shotgun. If you ever played any of the old Call of Duty games like Modern Warfare 2, it's kind of got this round drum mag. It's a semi-automatic shotgun. It didn't seem to be, at least when I was using it, didn't seem to be like a one-hitter quitter type of weapon. More of a took 2 or 3 shots, you know, or if an enemy was, you could kill them in one shot if they were already weak. But as far as taking somebody out in one shot like the traditional pump action shotgun. Well, I didn't really see that, but it was, if you paired it with like the pistol, it seemed to be kind of like, hit them and then switch to your pistol to finish them off type of weapon. But or you can just hit them multiple times because it does fire faster than the classic pump action shotgun. So, but I like it. I like the gun. I thought it was cool. Next, we'll talk about the pulse carbine. Pulse carbine is a new Covenant weapon. It basically is like a plasma rifle, but it shoots 3 bursts, like plasma bursts, and they kind of track a little bit too, which I thought was kind of cool. If you're getting headshots with it, it's pretty deadly, but if you're getting body shots, it takes a lot, so you pretty much have to be on headshots with this weapon. Aesthetically, I mean, I didn't think it was the coolest looking gun I've ever seen in Halo. I mean, it was fine. It looked like a Covenant plasma weapon. It's purple. It's what you'd expect. But as far as, I did pick it up a lot. I did like the gun, so I thought it was cool. Next, we'll talk about probably my favorite of the new guns, which is the Heat Wave, which I'm not sure if this is, I'm assuming it's a Covenant weapon, but I'm not sure the lore involving it. It's got a cool look, real cool aesthetic to it, and it's unique. That's something that you find less and less of, and first-person shooters these days are weapons that break the mold of your typical archetypes. So you have your typical rifles, fully auto, burst, single shot, and then submachine guns, snipers, shotguns, rockets, blah blah blah, all those. So whenever you find something that can't be stuck in one of those categories, I like that. I always think that's cool. It means people are thinking outside the box, and this gun falls into that category. It's a gun that shoots 5, I guess it's plasma shots. I'm not sure if it's plasma, what kind of energy it is, but it shoots 5 shots simultaneously that can ricochet off of surfaces, and it can be oriented by hitting the aim button. You can orient it horizontally or vertically. So if you have like multiple enemies in front of you that are kind of grouped up, you can shoot it horizontally and hit all of them. Or if you want to, aim at a single target, you can orient it vertically and have all your shots hit that one target, and usually it'll kill in a couple of shots. So really cool gun. Like I said, probably my favorite of the new guns. Next, we'll talk about the Ravager. Ravager is kind of interesting. It's a burst weapon. It shoots what looks like plasma burst volleys. And the reason I say volleys is because whereas the pulse carbine shoots 3-round burst in a straight line, this one, it shoots them and they kind of arc towards the ground after they come out of the gun. So they immediately begin to fall towards the ground. So you have to kind of aim up if your target is further away to hit your target. It's got a charge shot. So if you hold the trigger down, it'll charge up and fire like one big lob, and that lob will leave like a plasma fire on the ground that burns for a few seconds, and then anybody that's within that radius of the fire will take damage over time. So that's kind of cool. And also it's a brute weapon, so it's got like a giant blade on the front, because you can't have a brute weapon without a giant blade on the front of it. And speaking of brute weapons with giant blades on the front, next we have the Skewer, which I think is meant to be more of an anti-vehicle weapon, but I guess they wanted to show it off in the preview. So the way it was set up was they had 3 maps. All of them were kind of close quarters, like Slayer maps. So there's no vehicles, no big team, nothing like that. And then the power weapons, so the rocket, the sniper, the Skewer, all that stuff, they all would spawn on a timer in like the middle of the map or whatever. But they were specific to the map. So the Skewer was on the Sergeant Johnson Academy map. It's basically, if you can hit a player with it, it's a one-shot kill. But, again, I don't think it's not really meant for that. It's meant for vehicles. It has a giant blade on the front, so if you melee somebody, you can hit them with that. But there's not much to say about that one. It's cool looking. It shoots a giant stake, like you're killing vampires or something. But other than that, it's more of an anti-vehicle weapon. Next, we'll talk about some of the weapons that are not new. Or some of them are kind of new, but they fill roles that are not new. So with the assault rifle, we have the MA-37 assault rifle, or MA-40, I'm sorry, the MA-40 assault rifle, which looks just like the Halo Reach assault rifle, and that's because the Halo Reach assault rifle was the MA-37, so it's obviously like an evolution of the Halo Reach assault rifle. It's probably the best, in my opinion, the best overall, most well-rounded weapon for Slayer matches that as far as this preview went. It's good at close range. It kills pretty quick, especially if you're getting headshots, and it's easy to get headshots at close range. But even at distance, if you tap the trigger, you can get pretty consistent headshots and kill decently fast. Just overall feels really good. Just a really good version of the assault rifle. Next we have the Sidekick, which is the pistol featured. I don't know if this is going to be the only pistol in the game, but out of all the Halo games, I would say that Halo Infinite's pistol, the Sidekick, compares the most to the Halo 2 pistol. And I say that because it's a smaller frame and it's faster firing, but it feels like it packs more of a punch than the Halo 2. A Halo 2 pistol felt almost useless, but it fires pretty quickly, so you can take somebody out. It's not as powerful as any of the other pistols, any of the M6 models, but it's viable, and it's a great cleanup weapon. So if you're running a plasma pistol and you hit them with the overcharged shot, you can clean them up with the Sidekick. So it's great in that regard. Next we have the battle rifle. I mean, it's the BR, probably the most well-known, universally loved weapon in Halo. Everybody loves the BR. This one seems to be taking it back to the classic Halo 2 and Halo 3 style BR as far as the look and the scope on it. And, I have to wonder if part of that is because they seem to have adjusted the way that ADSing or aiming down the sights in Halo Infinite works versus Halo 5. Because, in Halo 5, they introduced the ability to ADS. A lot of people didn't like that because Halo was always been shoot from the hip gun. Back in the day, that term didn't even come up until Call of Duty whenever they introduced ADSing, and they called non-ADSing shooting from the hip. So everybody calls Halo since then shooting from the hip. But either way, in the lore, in the books early on, it explained that the Spartan Mjolnir armor had a targeting system built into it, and therefore that's why you don't need to aim, because the reticle that you see on screen is supposed to be representative of what the Spartan sees inside their helmet. So there's not a need to shoulder the weapon as far as like aiming. I mean, they shoulder it, but as far as like putting it in front of you and looking down the sights of the weapon, it wasn't necessary. So it seems like they've kind of reined it in a little bit. You can still zoom with all the guns, but like the battle rifle, Halo 5's battle rifle was like more of a red dot. And so whereas this one is a scope, so when you aim in, it just goes right to that full screen scope mode. And the other scoped weapons are the same. You can still zoom in with other weapons, but it didn't go for a full-on ADS style. So I think it's a good compromise. I think they did a good job of kind of balancing that out to appease both sides, the people who wanted it and the people who don't like it. But the battle rifle, again, it's the battle rifle. The aim assist feels pretty strong towards the head, so it's easy to get those crispy 3-round burst shots to the head. Really powerful at range, very good at range. Slower time to kill than maybe the assault rifle, but again, it's got a much greater range, and it's not really meant to kill fast at the same ranges as the assault rifle, so that's fine. So I love the look of it. I think the design that they went for looks like a modern, or like if you were to take Halo 2 or 3's assault battle rifle and move it into a modern game, that's what it feels like to me, and I really like that. Next we'll talk about the sniper rifle. Looks like this is S7, I think. It looks like the Halo Reach sniper rifle. I mean, there's not much to say about his sniper rifle. I mentioned earlier that wind zoom. It doesn't really on the maps that were available. To me, the sniper is more of a big team weapon where you have people off in the distance. I like sniping at greater distances. I'm not a fan of the whole quick scope and running gun with a sniper rifle type of thing. So I didn't really use it a whole lot, but I did feel like I needed to adjust the sensitivity while zoomed, because by default it felt like the zoom sensitivity was higher than I like it to be. But other than that, I mean, like I said, it's the sniper rifle. It feels like the sniper in previous games. It looks like the sniper in previous games, just with better graphics, which is always nice. But next is the rocket launcher. They changed the way the rocket launcher looked from the classic look, the spanker, the classic look from previous Halo games and Halo 5 to make it look totally different. And a lot of people weren't happy with that. I wouldn't say it was a huge deal to me, but I do prefer the classic rocket launcher look because, it's like the assault rifle. It has a look that is synonymous with Halo. And if you change that, then it feels like you're disrespecting the game. You're taking things that people feel like are special to that series and just removing it for no good reason. And so I'm glad that they made the choice to go back to the classic look. It looks really nice. It fires the way you expect it to. We don't know if it's got tracking on vehicles or not yet, because there's no vehicles in the game other than in the gallery. But we'll see how it looks or how it works once we're able to actually play in big team matches against vehicles and all that stuff. Next up, we'll talk about the Needler. Again, classic Halo weapon. Has the more Halo Reach style look to it, where the needles are like more jagged versus being finely cut crystals like you had in 1 through 3. But it's a fast firing Needler, like in pretty much every game since Halo 3. The difference I noticed though is that the Needler in Halo Infinite, whereas previous Halo games, the Needler would start off shooting slow and then it would ramp up and get faster. This one just starts off full on, like it's as soon as you pull the trigger, it's shooting fast and it doesn't ramp up. It just shoots fast the whole time. I like that. Thought that was, a nice addition, and it made it really deadly to the point that it almost felt power weapon deadly, but it's not a power weapon. It's just a regular wall weapon. So that was cool. I like that a lot. So I was happy with the changes to the Needler, and as far as the speed right out the gate versus the ramp up. Next, we'll talk about the plasma pistol. I mean, again, plasma pistol, hold the button to charge it up and drop their shields. Use something like the sidekick or battle rifle for cleanup. Still sucks shooting individual shots, or at least in my experience. It's nowhere near as good as the Halo Combat Evolved plasma pistol, but none have been. It's always... Halo CE was the only one where the plasma pistol was not only a viable weapon on its own, it was one that I consistently chose over lots of other weapons because you could kill so fast with it. It was so potent. So I don't know, maybe one day they'll bring that back, but for now it's pretty much your run-of-the-mill plasma pistol. I like the way it looks. It looks good. Looks like a new plasma pistol in a modern game. So, and lastly, we'll talk about the brute hammer a little bit. I mean, not much to say about this one either. The brute hammer is the same that it's been in the other games. It's a giant hammer, gravity hammer. It seems like the swing animation is a little slower in Halo Infinite, but if you're close enough to the enemy, it's a one-hit kill every time. So now, if you're not close enough, then it takes a few hits to kill them. But it's it's a brute hammer. So next, we'll talk about equipment. So equipment is, I think, kind of a mix of Halo 3's equipment and Halo Reach's armor abilities, which is kind of cool. So you have things like active camouflage, an overshield, drop wall, which I like to call a dollar store bubble shield. Because it's like the bubble shield, but it's not as good. Bubble shield would create a complete circle, an impenetrable circle around you, where the drop shield just drops energy wall in front of you that is built up of zones or sections, and as those sections take fire, they'll visibly change color to let you know they're getting weaker before they pop. I'm not saying it's bad or useless. I think the animation for dropping it needs to be sped up a little bit, because I found that I stopped using it later on as the technical preview went on, because the time that it took, like if somebody starts shooting you and you go to drop it, the animation for dropping it and then it deploying is so long that you're either already dead or it doesn't really do much good. The enemies already own you or whatever. So I think they should increase the animation speed for dropping it to make it more viable. There's a threat sensor, I think is what it's called, which is basically, if you've ever played Call of Duty Blackout, which was the first battle royale that they made for Call of Duty. It was in Black Ops 4. It had a thing called a sensor dart. Basically, it was this thing that you could fire and it would stick to any surface, and then it would show any enemies within the radius of the sensor dart on your radar. Now, Halo already has a radar that shows all the enemies within your radius. So I guess the purpose of this is that, like, it'll show outlines of enemies through walls. So even though your radar is telling you there's somebody over there, it's just showing you a dot. So I guess the point of this thing is to show you exactly where they are. I don't know. It's cool. I'm not gonna dog it out, but I don't know how useful it is in a game like Halo, where you already have radar tracker that tells you where enemies are all the time. Maybe if you fired it somewhere and then ran to the other side of the map, but again, you wouldn't be near them, so it wouldn't. I don't know. Like I said, it's not terrible, but it'd be interesting to see where it ends up finding its place within the sandbox of Halo. So to talk about the active camo a little bit, it's your typical, what you're used to with active camo. The only difference I noticed is that in the original Halo, whenever you would have your active camo, you were invisible. Yeah. Whereas in later games, they made it to where when you get active camo, if you moved at full speed, you would become visible. And so they're as kind of a way to try to nerf it. This game, it seems like you can move at full speed with active camo and still stay invisible, but when you fire your weapon, then you become visible, which is fine. You shouldn't be totally invisible all the time when you've got it, so that's fine. It makes it a little more useful, because I felt like in games where getting the active camo where you would become visible just from moving at full speed, it would make it to where I didn't want to pick it up because it felt kind of useless. So it's cool that they kind of went back to the drawing board on that. The overshield is overshield, gives you more shields. What? Everybody knows what that does. But lastly, the most interesting of the new equipment is obviously the grapple hook. So the grapple, it lets you obviously traverse the map quickly, swing from the ceiling to other parts of the map, stuff like that. That's cool. But other gameplay possibilities it opens up to kind of give you more of those Halo moments that everybody loves. You can grapple other players. You can grapple yourself to other players. You can grapple weapons. You can grapple. So we saw in the trailer where they grappled a fusion coil and then threw it at somebody, or he grappled up to that aerial vehicle to board them and take them out. So stuff like that is really cool. I'd be interesting to see if like, let's say somebody's flying by you on a Warthog and they've got like a gunner or something, and you grapple the back of the Warthog as they're flying by you and basically just go on a friggin' ride and pull yourself up and take the gunner out or whatever. Like, stuff like that could be really cool. So the only complaint I have about the grapple is I don't like that they gave it charges, because basically when you pick up the grapple, you get like 3 uses before it's not you can't use it anymore unless you pick up another one or die, whatever. I'm not sure. I didn't notice if you could pick up another one within the same life, or if you had to die and pick one up. I'm not sure. Personally, I think that they would have been better served if they used like a cooldown system. So you use it and then you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can use it again. But that makes it to where you can keep using it as long as you're alive. I think that would have been more fun. But overall, it's probably the coolest, most interesting addition to the game that I've seen yet. So I'm looking forward, especially in campaign, looking forward to using it and seeing all the cool stuff you can do with it. Next, I want to talk about the shooting range a little bit. I thought the shooting range was a really cool addition. It gave me vibes of the old Perfect Dark back in the day. Sitting there trying to complete all the challenges at the firing range that they had. Because in Perfect Dark, it was like you would pick your weapon, and then there was bronze, silver, and gold challenges, which is similar. Halo Infinite has 1, 2, and 3 star challenges. Now, if they stay the way they are in Halo Infinite, then the challenges are much easier than they were in Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark had they would throw some pretty unique challenges at you at the shooting range. So I'd love to see something like that in the final game. But it's still cool, because there were certain guns, specifically like the Commando or the Ravager, that I didn't really understand the gun or how it was supposed to be used when I picked it up in game. But then when I went to the shooting range, it made sense, because I was able to sit there and play with it and figure out, okay, well, I need to do this or I need to do that, to this kind of weapon. So that was cool. Plus, if they handle it right, it'll be something extra. If you don't feel like playing campaign or you don't feel like playing multiplayer, you just want to mess around and do something else, you go to the academy and go to the shooting range, and they put cool enough challenges in there, then you could have a lot of fun with that. So I always love little additions like that to games that give you something extra to do. So definitely a thumbs up on that. Thought it was really cool. Next, we'll talk about bots. I did get to play a couple of matches of player versus player, but they had them at specific windows. So from this time to this time on this day or whatever. So unfortunately, when I hopped on and did get into a couple of the PvP matches, I wasn't recording. So all the footage I have is against bots. There was a lot of kind of hoopla made about the bots in the game. I didn't get to experience the really easy bots that a lot of players did, especially some of the bigger Halo streamers and YouTubers, because I would watch videos of Halo YouTubers that I watch, and I would be like, man, the bots and their videos were way easier than the ones I was facing. And so what I figured out was that this was because the way they did it was I think they started with Marine bots, and then they got more and more difficult as the technical preview went on. So for example, I didn't know that they were going to be giving out invitations to the technical preview over the course of its run. I thought if you didn't get in at the beginning, then you just didn't get in. So my son actually came in and was like, a couple of days later, was like, hey, did you check to see if you got in? I was like, well, no, I didn't get in the first day. He's like, no, they're still giving them out. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So I went to Halo Waypoint, and sure enough, I had actually been invited the second day and totally missed that. So I started on Friday playing the preview. So I missed most of it. So when I started playing, it was against ODST bots and then Spartan bots, right off the bat. And so the bots were, I would say, in the grand scheme of fighting bots in a shooting game, they seemed competent. Their aim was really good. They stuck together really good. They used a lot of grenades. So in that regard, they were definitely could be challenging, but they would still do things that would let you know that they're a bot. So there were times that I would see them trying to jump on a ledge and they couldn't, so they would just be like facing this wall, just jumping up and down over and over and over again, and everything. And almost every match that I was in, we would beat them with a spectacular, which means that we blew them out, you know. So I never had a single match where we lost to the bots. There were some where it was closer. It wasn't a spectacular, but that was rare. And this was against the Spartan bots, not just the ODST bots. So yeah, I would say that they were good enough for training, but you know, they're nowhere near as good as real players. Next, we'll talk about the customization options. Right off the bat, one of the things is armor coatings, which to me look like shaders from Destiny, which is fine, but it's basically it's a thing that you apply to your armor that may make it one color or make it multiple colors or different color schemes or whatever. You can apply these to vehicles and weapons. And of course they have, as in all the recent Halo games, there's lots of different helmets and visors and visor colors and different variations of chest pieces and arm pieces and so on and so forth. They did add the ability to make one or each or all of your limbs prosthetic. So you could have a prosthetic arm or a prosthetic leg or all four arm, you know, both your arms and both your legs prosthetic. So that's cool. One of the things that they kind of talked about a lot in terms of customization was the personal AIs. These seem to be just kind of more well thought out versions of Halo Reach's firefight voices that you could unlock. If you remember from Reach, you know, you could unlock voices like Sergeant Johnson or Cortana or different members of Noble Team, or so you could have all, and they would like say all the lines of that you would hear in Firefight. So it's basically the same thing. You know, in the preview, you've got 4 different AIs you can choose from. They all have different voices and different lines that they say. They have visually, their hologram or whatever looks different. You can customize the color of it. Like, I think it's just something there to add an extra layer. It's not, at least as far as the technical preview is concerned, it's not game enhancing. You know, it's just an extra thing there to kind of make you laugh sometimes whenever you do something cool in the game and your AI says a line or whatever that's funny. They had the store up and going that I guess is going to be in the final game, where you can use credits to purchase weapon skins or armor pieces or coatings and stuff like that, and they gave everybody some currency that they could use. So I bought, like, you know, a weapon skin or a shader or whatever, or coating, I'm sorry. But other than that, there seems to be, you know, and we've all seen like the samurai that they showed off, you know, in the trailer. So that's good. I'm sure there'll be plenty of customization. Customization's always good. There's two. They had 2 different body types that you could choose from, which I'm assuming is, you know, male and female. But they just called it body type 1 and 2. One's thinner than the other. So next, we'll talk about the sound. Not a ton to say about this because I'm not really a sound expert, but Halo, the original Halo games were all made better by Marty O'Donnell's music. And whenever they moved on, Bungie moved on, and 343 took over Halo, there was a lot of people wondering how the sound was going to be. I personally really enjoyed Halo 4's music. I thought it was really good. Not as much a fan of Halo 5's music, but Halo Infinite seems to be kind of try to strike a balance, which is interesting because that's what Halo 3 did, where it kind of called back to a lot of the music. Halo 3 was like a mix of new sounds, but going back to like Halo 1 music as well. And so this one is the same. There's a lot of new sounding stuff, but then there's some classic Halo tracks in there, the monks and all that stuff. So sound effects, everything sounds crisp, everything sounds clear. So overall, I'd say, at least from the technical preview, the sound is good, really good. And that's pretty much it for all the categories I wanted to cover. As far as my final thoughts, I'll just say that I did enjoy the technical preview. I was glad I got to play it. I'm more of a campaign / story guy, so I enjoy multiplayer in Halo as much as the next person, but it's not the reason I play the game. And so for me, the verdict of how good of a Halo game Infinite is will come down to the story. Luckily, we've got Joe Staten back involved, the story lead for Bungie for all of the Halo games. He's even written a novel about Sergeant Johnson that was really good. So he knows Halo's story. I don't know, he joined kind of late in development, so I don't know how much, if any, input he had into the story of the game before or after his joining of 343. Hopefully it was a lot, just because I trust him and his storytelling abilities. So for me, the verdict is going to be the campaign. I liked what little bit they showed with the weapon, as everybody was calling her, the young Cortana. In the books, in the early books, Cortana was constantly making copies of herself and leaving them all over the place, Covenant ships and in Forerunner systems and everything like that. So I hope whether it be through the weapon or some other means, we end up seeing some kind of redemption arc for Cortana. Obviously, the version of Cortana that was made to be the bad guy in Halo 5, irredeemable. I would say, I don't want to say anybody's irredeemable, but the stuff she's done since Halo 5 is pretty bad. So, but bringing in a clone of her or another version of her that's good, I feel like would still kind of be a redemption arc. But then there's also the meme that everybody posted after that trailer came out where she's talking to Chief in Halo 4 and she's like, they'll give you another AI, maybe even another Cortana model, but it won't be me. You know that, right? And so that makes for interesting possibilities in the story. But I'm looking forward to it. I hope. I was not a fan of Halo 5 story at all, so I really hope that we get a much better campaign this go round. But as far as the technical preview, I had, because of my feelings towards Halo 5, I was not hyped for Halo Infinite, just to be honest. Like, I mean, I was, but I wasn't. As a huge Halo fan for so long, it's impossible for me to not be hyped about a new Halo game. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think about, what happened with Halo 5, and so I was like, well, I have to kind of check my expectations. But at least in terms of where they're going with the gameplay and the graphics and all that stuff, the sound, I would say the equipment, all that stuff, the guns, I would say that I'm happy. This makes me a lot more hyped for Halo Infinite than I was before, because now I feel like, okay, well, they've got all the foundation stuff down. They've got the controls, and they've got the movement, and they've got the equipment and the guns and all these systems down, and it feels really good and it's really fun and all that. So all they got to do is deliver on the campaign. If I had to quantify my feelings overall on Halo Infinite from the technical preview, I would say that 343 has finally figured out how to bring Halo into the future while still feeling like Halo. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. Thanks for watching. If you did, I'll be posting the next episode in my Halo 2 OG Xbox playthrough series real soon. So be on the lookout for that. And if you enjoyed this, toss me a like. I appreciate it. And if you want to see more, hit that sub button. I appreciate that. But otherwise, until next time.